üks, kaks, kolm. Esimene, teine, kolmas. Esimene, teine, kolmas. Kolmas, neljas, teine, kolmas, neljas, esimene, teine, esimene. Teine, kolmas, neljas, esimene, teine, kolmas. Esimene, teine, kolmas, esimene, teine.
Good morning, everybody. How are you? Good. Yeah, that's the spirit. Welcome to Tallinn Music Week. It's the 7th edition. We're going to open this event up in style now. Hope you're feeling fabulous after last night. Hope you've been seeing many good bands already. And now is going to be the moment when that many of you have been waiting for. And I'm happy to introduce you to the very special person, our rock and roll president, if we can say that. His name is Toomas Hendrik Ilves, the President of Estonia. Welcome.
Well, good morning, or something. Looking at some of you here drinking champagne at 10 a.m. I guess it's been I guess you can go to sleep soon. Just have to get through this, right? I said a couple of years ago here, starting a rock and roll festival at 10 a.m. is like asking for milk at CBGB's at 3 a.m. This is quite a crowd. They get bigger and bigger every year. And I'm very happy to once again be able to open this, because I think this is one of the coolest things that for not only Estonia, but rather in the region, that we have something as wonderful as Tallinn Music Week, where you really do get to see what's new, interesting, what's happening in music and more broadly in contemporary culture. For example, the classical music rave tonight must be, I think, the first ever anywhere. And I look forward to that if I can stay up that long, because I'm old, you know. Oddly enough, I woke up this morning, I went to my computer, and I had a mail from someone who I last saw 35 years ago. 35 years ago, I was teaching in a private school. I taught English and I taught science, but then there were these kids who really weren't really interested in anything. You might as well call them stoners or something. But anyway, in order to get them enthused, on Friday afternoons I taught a course called The History of Rock and Roll, which is pretty funny given that in 1979 rock and roll was, well, basically, you know, what was it, 25 years old, and that was 35 years ago. But anyway, he wrote me a letter this morning. I hadn't heard from him in 35 years, and he said how the course had changed his life. He didn't say for the better or for the worse, but but in any case, so 7 years of Tallinn Music Week is a short history compared to the history of rock and roll. I said, I love, for some reason here, I'm always quoting Ezra Pound, who did say poets are the antennae of the race, and I think that is translated now over to the culture of music, which in so many ways has been that part of contemporary culture that senses things earlier. I got into trouble here 3 years ago when I talked about Pussy Riot, which no one had heard about at the time. I was soon excommunicated from the Lutheran Church, but in any case, in general, music tends to be ahead of everything. I'm glad this year there's one area where music has been behind things, and it's catching up with the boring, dull world of politics, which is that a country like ours, which became re-established its independence in 1991, made its way back to Europe officially in 2004, We thought we'd eradicated all of the differences between Eastern and Western Europe with joining the European Union and so on. But nonetheless, there's this thing which continues to be called the Central East European Talent Exchange Program, as opposed to the European Talent Exchange Program, as if there's something kind of special or second rate or second class about us Central and East Europeans, because, you know, but fortunately that is now coming to an end, and I think that's one of the events that we have here that is worth appreciating, that finally we too, we are recognized as being real people when it comes to music, even though I do think that we might have to reinstitute this soon, because actually much of the interesting stuff is coming from this part of the world. A little bit about how this is all arranged. I would say that this is largely a private sector effort that Helen has been pursuing here, which on the one hand makes it much more difficult to do, because you know, trying to do things without, here especially in our dear European Union, where everything requires funding from the EU or the state, to do something in spite of that is quite an accomplishment. But then again, I think for music it is worthwhile doing. It's understandable because music, rock and roll, punk, they've all been largely anti-establishment, and so yeah, there's always this kind of strange sort of have this queasy feeling when I see officially promoted rock and roll, because it doesn't seem like it's quite the right thing. I mean, if you think about the history again, you know, even with Elvis pumping his thighs in 1953, 54, and that was all anti-establishment, and everything since then has at least, if not been really anti-establishment, at least it's had that tinge to it. I mean, it was already in the 70s that Malcolm McLaren figured out that if you really want to make money, you're going to create a neo-Marxist revolutionary band, which he did, and it's called The Clash. I mean, it's pretty funny to think about a Marxist punk band being created by a capitalist because you can make more money by being revolutionary and anti-establishment. So that was learned already 35 years ago. But on the other hand, what is really good, and here comes the political moment of my speech, which is that I like it that way. When you know, rock and roll has to do it, it's on its own, because when it goes the other way, it can do nasty things. I would recommend everyone here, and you can write it down, but to go to YouTube and type in biker show or bike show Sevastopol 2014, and you'll find an hour-long link there. And then you'll see what happens when rock and roll and hip hop and everything else is in the service of the state. It is a genuine Gesamtkunstwerk, if that means anything to anyone, but that was Richard Wagner's idea of the total piece of art, including everything. And this is a synthesis of all forms of art, in this case rock and roll, hip hop, light shows, ballet dancers in the shape of swastikas, fireworks, real fire, a huge motorcycle gang on Harleys with flags, genuine spectacle with tanks on stage, and full of war and hate. It makes Leni Riefenstahl's propaganda masterpiece, Triumph of the Will, or Triumph des Willes, really pale in comparison. And so the Gesamtwerk today is even more Gesamt than anything Richard Wagner could conceive of, because we have all these new media, and for some reason Gesamtwerke tend to support totalitarian ends. They did in the case of Leni Riefenstahl. They did in the case actually of in Bayreuth as well, but today we see it being used in the service of the state in ways that I could never have conceived of in the past. So if we think that rock and roll is just fun and anti-establishment, we have to realize that rock and roll can be used to also very nasty authoritarian ends, especially when it is fueled by oil and other things. So keep in mind, rock and roll is great, music is fantastic, but let's keep it at the grassroots. Let's keep it as something that we do on our own. Let's not bring it to the service of authoritarianism, hatred, and warmongering. I'm glad this festival is taking place here precisely in the way it is taking place, in the spirit of that Helen has devoted here. This is the 7th time. Here you can see what happens when you have the spontaneous live culture that you can muster in a free society without the dull, heavy hand of the state, or even without the dull, heavy hand of the president. Let us keep in mind, music should be redemptive, not in the service of the state. But I don't want to talk anymore because you'll fall asleep, because I am a politician. So I'm going to end it with that. And really, this is one of my favorite times of the year. I get to come here, see Helen, listen to music. It's fantastic. Welcome to Estonia.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, and are we damn lucky to have a president like this, huh? Yeah. Now I would like to invite another wonderful person who represents a very good company with a mission here in Estonia, Nordea Bank, who has been supportive of not only Tallinn Music Week, but several other cultural events like the film festival BÖF and Nargen Festival. They really have set their minds to supporting Estonian creativity and culture. This is Nordea Bank and Petri Nikila, the head of Nordea Estonia.
Thank you, Helen. Mr. President, dear Helen and the entire team and ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed my pleasure to welcome you also to Tallinn Music Week on behalf of Nordea. I understand that you're not very interested in what the sponsors have to say, but I do believe that you appreciate the champagne, that someone needs to finance that, that the President mentioned. I hope that you will have plenty of champagne and lots of other drinks during this fantastic event that Helen has again put together. So we're very proud to be part of that. And as we heard, this is not the only event we are part of. And you might ask that, why is that bank is so interested in culture? And for us, this is quite simple. We very much appreciate the similar long-term sustainable values that culture and arts creates. So we want to see a great connectivity with the people in Estonia through many multiple arts that creates a society that we can be part of and support. Governments will change, all kinds of regimes will change, but culture will stay. It's the same for Nordea, that financial crises will come and go, but Nordea will stay. So there's something, there's something we share. Another reason for us to be gladly part of this is, of course, personal. I think it helps if the head of the bank actually likes the stuff that they support. So this is the case for me as well. So. I've been in music all my life, and I come from a little town in west coast of Finland where, things are not very exciting. Apparently, it's the most exciting place on the planet for those who are interested that how much the Earth is coming up in a year. Because after the glacier, it's been kind of squeezed, so it's coming up gradually. But it's about 0.01 millimeter in a year, so it's not very interesting to watch. So the second most interesting thing in that little town is that it has a fantastic music scene. So it has a big music academy and lots of bands and all the rest of it. And I had the chance to be part of that as a little boy, and it's a life-changing experience. which I'm sure that a lot of people share in this room. So one day you are just a little boy in a little town, and then next day you become part of the culture history of Europe. You can imagine yourself in Vienna or whatever other places, because you get to that through music. So I hope we can facilitate similar experiences for lots of people in this country going forward. Also, it's been a life-changing experience that later on, much more years after that, when I started, I found my wife also in a symphony orchestra, and I realized that there is eventually one James Bond movie cliché that is right. The cello players indeed are the best looking. Thank you.
Thank you, Petri. That's definitely the most fun speech I've heard from the head of a bank. Yeah. So this is now the moment when we think about. I'm going to try and walk you through what's waiting ahead of you, what you should expect to experience during this weekend. When we started in 2009, we had a very clear and precise message in our minds. We wanted to upgrade the value of Estonian music and Estonia in general. We started out with that in mind, but as things go along and years have passed, already 7 years have passed, and I'm personally always shocked when somebody reminds me that it's already the 7th year, we've grown in quite many directions, which is, I can't say that this is something we planned from the start, but it's just things happen, and this is the brilliant way of creativity. We've grown into, starting by being a music festival, we've grown into a city festival with something very specific in mind. Creativity is the thing we focus on. We want to, you lovely people who arrive in Tallinn or in Estonia, I hope not only once a year, but more often. The reason why we decided to offer you everything we like about Estonia, be it then the restaurants, the chefs, the arts, the design. We show you people's homes and art galleries and design studios within our City Stays program. We grew into a festival that has the attempt to show everything that we Estonians love about Estonia, but also at the same time we became an international event that this year is hosting 205 artists and bands from 26 different countries. They come from as far as Cambodia to Serbia, Sweden, Denmark, America, Canada, absolutely from all around the places. And to our great surprise, it was just only last week when our team sort of by accident realized that, wow, it was the New York Times who in their weekly recommendations, there's this part of the program that they have called What's Going On in the World This Week. They recommended all the people amongst other 5 places where to go to, they recommended them to come to Tallinn Music Week. So that was a great surprise to us as well. But talking about creativity, and this is something that we talk a lot in here, it has been my clear message and something that I think is a mission to all in our team to say that creativity really is the engine for societies and economies and countries. It makes the cities better, the countries better, it gives content to all the products and services that we have in our greater businesses. So I think we're dealing with something which is not only a musical event, but we're dealing with something which is crucial for our society. But also I want to also point out that the foundation of creativity always lies within a deeper layer of values, which are equal rights, freedom of speech, human rights in general. An open and tolerant society which passionately is supportive of every single human being is basically the basis of a successful society. that has been a message that we want to show and sort of spotlight. When last year we were talking about freedom of speech a lot in the context of having Pussy Riot here, then this year we have a bit of another agenda. We want to put a focus on some of the very clever and talented women in the business, because I personally got tired of hearing that music industry is a very masculine business and mainly male-driven. We want to highlight some of the brilliant women. And in the program, after this part finishes here, you're gonna see the interview with the legendary Viv Albertine from the Slits. They started as a girl punk band in the 70s, and her story is going to be definitely super interesting. We will host an interview with Marie Dimberg, the manager of Roxette, and she's been considered one of the most influential women in the music industry in Sweden in general. Our dear friend Anna Hildur will interview her, and also I'm going to be hosting a panel here with a collection of amazing women. One of them, Anne Erm. I could say that she's the cornerstone of Estonian festival culture. It's a lady who has been running a festival here in Estonia for 26 years. It's called Jazzcar, and we all respect her hugely. And in general, I personally have to say that two of the most inspiring people in this business for me personally are women. This is Pauliina Ahokas, who's sitting there. I cannot not point this out, how clever this woman is. Now the head of Tampere Talo, and Anna Hildur, who you will be seeing later on as well. I'm just really fortunate and happy to be able to know these people. What else are we talking about? We already talked about, the president in his speech mentioned it as well, but indeed, I think it's a good way of celebrating that a talent exchange program that is still being called the Central Eastern European Program is, in fact, in 2016, finally merging into the European Talent Exchange Program. I'm looking at Ruud in front of me there, who's the head of Eurosonic, and I think this is the moment when we all have to agree that the term that we have been calling Eastern Europe is now officially expired. Yeah, so I think it's about time that we start talking about Europe as one Europe. We do not need specific prefixes to refer to any part of Europe. And to highlight that, we concentrate on many interesting markets within this conference. Poland, we talk about Austria. There's a dedicated panel also on the positive side of what is going on in Russia today. Some of the dedicated and really good people are going to be on that panel as well. And last night we were able to kick off the festival with two opening parties. We had a spot on Denmark, and we're really proud to host a biggest ever selection of bands out of Denmark this year. And another brilliant fact, a southern Estonian small village called Obinitsa is carrying the title of the capital culture of Finno-Ugri nations this year. What this means is it's 25 million people in the world who belong into the Finno-Ugri cultural well, nationalities basically. So this is another focus that we're celebrating. It's music as a cultural experience in all its variety, and this is exactly why we include passionately all the music genres into our program as well. We always have classical music included, jazz music, folk, pop, rock, dance, absolutely everything, and we encourage all of you to go and see some of the shows and bands and music genres that you might normally not even maybe go to the shows. I'm especially proud and grateful this year, as the president was pointing out as well, that I've thought about it myself a lot, that we talk about the public sector a lot, and we sometimes are very frustrated that the public sector doesn't move so dynamically and quickly as we would want in our companies and private sector. I think it's time for us to realize that it has to be indeed the private sector, us, the companies, the entrepreneurs, who drive the industry, who drive the society, who drive the country. I think we really do have a leading role in that. And if the public sector is slower, then that's totally natural. We can move fast, we can be dynamic, we can lead the way, and then we can make things move. I really do believe in that. And this is why I am indeed especially grateful for those private companies who have decided to work with us, invest in us. Some of those companies are very visible always, and we're happy to have them visible. Some of the companies and private initiatives this year, they just wanted to help. They didn't even want anything in return. And that is particularly moving to me. Thank you. But yeah, I am super grateful for our team. People constantly ask, wow, now it's on the 7th year. Is it getting easier now? I don't know why or how it never gets easier, but it doesn't. And I'm just super grateful for our team who's been putting up with all the pressure and deadlines and loads of work. Thank you. I'm always super grateful for our design company, Aku. The design is an integral part of the music festival, and I think it should be to all of the creative events. If we want to do the best music event, we have to have the best creative people involved in that, be it designers or interior designers, or the company called Haiku, who made ourselves a new website that got awarded immediately. So this is all super inspiring for ourselves. So thank you to Nordea Bank for caring about the society and the culture in Estonia. Thanks to Nordic Hotel Forum, that has been the home for us since we started in 2009. And Felix Magus and Kersti Vaino were the first people who started believing in us. To Estonian Mobile Phone at AMT for in general investing into Estonian music. Thanks to Info Auto, so we can drive those wonderful fancy Volvo cars. and Tuborg and Saku as well, who has been supporting us continuously. And as soon as you're already back in the foyers at 11 o'clock, a brand new initiative called Wire is our new partner. And why we're super excited about that is that Wire is a new digital tool that is for people who have been using Skype, for example, and all of you know that Skype was our partner. Some of the brilliant minds who started Skype, in fact, are now in behind the Wire as well. It's an Estonian initiative, but a very international company. Communication tool for people who value design, elegance, privacy. It's a delicate and very visually attractive tool. And this is how we will communicate with all of you once you all download the Wire into your laptop and your phone. And you're going to find out all the festival news and everything that I do. I'm going to put on Wire this year. But first of all, of course, we will communicate directly, face to face. That's what this event is about. I'm so happy to see you all here. I'm truly glad to see old friends, new friends, everybody. And I think now is the time to say that the conference has officially kicked off. And I want all of you to have so much fun and meet good people. And I want to see only happy faces this weekend. Thanks. We have a 15-minute break now. There's more sparkling wine and more good music. And everybody grab hold of the catalog that you will need during the weekend. Thanks.